Hello, Heartful Parent family. It is time for this week's bonus episode of the podcast. These little bonus episodes are my gift to you because, as you've heard me say, inevitably, time and time again, we were never meant to parent alone. And I know that all of us, myself included, have so many questions about parenting. In the work that I do and the many hats that I wear, one of my very favorite things is getting and answering questions from parents and getting to support you, you, on your journey. So each week I'm taking one real question from a listener or a subscriber to my newsletter and I'm diving in. So on that note, here we go with this week's question.
Hey, welcome back for another bonus episode of the Heartful Parent Podcast. We have a great question that came in from a reader today, and whether or not this exact situation is happening in your house, I suspect there are elements of this that you'll be able to relate to this. So here's the question, and I'm just going to read it to you because it's a little bit detailed, and then I'm going to dive into my response. So this parent says, I would love insight on how to support a big feeling teenager who goes between two households that parallel parent. My daughter really struggles when I set limits and boundaries at my house. All of her big feelings come out with me, and it's exhausting. I also have a younger daughter to parent, and I work full-time. My teenager has huge expectations of me, and I remind her that I'm human, but it doesn't seem to sink in. I also do my best to practice mindfulness, empathy, and emotional regulation, but sometimes I just need a break. It doesn't help that her other parent undermines things that I try to implement to support her. All right, this is so difficult. It's so difficult, and there's so much that we could dive into here. We've got a number of different dynamics happening, right? So we've got the dynamic of two parallel households, right? So we've got parents who are not living together, not parenting together, and perhaps not co-parenting particularly effectively or on the same page. Okay, so there's that dynamic. Then we've got the dynamic of a teenager who is going through all the brain changes and hormonal changes that happen through puberty. It's a complete restructuring of the brain and lots of things happening there that, of course, could be many episodes all unto themselves. Okay, then we've also got sibling dynamics, right? Where this particular older sibling seems to have really big expectations of her parent. And there may be an element of, I'm going to keep you busy so that my younger sister doesn't get the attention, right? So there's that. And then we've got a working parent who's pulled in lots of different directions and is feeling spread a little bit thin, despite the attempt to dive into the best practices available. So that's a lot of different things going on. And we could, like I said, we could spend lots of time on each one of those pieces. So in the interest of time, and for this bonus episode, I'm going to give some sort of shorter answers, and we'll let this parent and any others who feel like you're dealing with these similar dynamics or elements know where you can get more support. So first, when we are dealing with teenagers and when we are dealing with divided homes, what we have to remember is two things. One, we can only control what's within our sphere. We can only control what we can control. And what our other parent, the co-parent, does during their time with our children is not something that we have a lot of control over, particularly in those situations where we are not communicating well, not co-parenting well. And it sounds like this is one of those. And so, this parent sounds like the other parent doesn't support what they try to implement. And that, of course, makes it harder. So just coming back to our own sphere of influence, we can only control or we can only influence what is really within our sphere of influence, which means, what is within our home, the four walls of our home, the things that happen when that child is with us. And that's where we need to put our energies and attention. It's really easy, and I've seen this happen with lots of clients. It's really easy and tempting to get tied up in what the other parent might or might not be doing. And that doesn't necessarily serve us. So focusing on what's in front of us. And then the second big thing here to remember is that each parent, and this is true whether you live in a family where parents are still together or a family where they're not, each parent is independently, individually, and wholly responsible for the relationship that they build with their children. Let's imagine this is a heterosexual household. Mom is 100% responsible for the relationship that she has with both of these kids. Dad is 100% responsible for the relationship that he has with both of these kids. And when one parent tries to take responsibility for the other parent or explain away what that other parent is doing or make excuses for it or validate it or whatever, especially in a divided household, it can be really, really tricky. And so, if we are parenting with a partner or a co-parent who isn't parenting in the same way that you are, isn't making the effort to build a healthy, loving, strong, mutually respectful relationship, there's only so much you can do about that. And it might very well be nothing that you can do about that. So just really placing your emphasis on again, what you can control and on your relationship with your child. Then what we want to do from there is think about, so how do we support those things, right? How do we support what goes on in the four walls of our home? And how do we focus on the relationship that we have with our child? And the answer for this really is pretty much the same, regardless of, again, whether we're talking about one home or two homes. We want to create structure. We want to have some structures present in our homes that allow us to connect and build relationship with our children. So ideas for that, activities that we do together, special time, family meetings, good night rituals, all of those sorts of structures that really are going to build that relationship with our children, whether they're 5 or 15. And that's, just to throw this out there, and you may have heard me mention this before, that's one of the things I love most about positive discipline is that the tools that come with positive discipline, so special time, family meetings, connection rituals, all of those are tools that work whether you have a 2-year-old or a 22-year-old or somewhere in between, which a lot of other parenting approaches don't give us tools that are effective long-term. They give you a tool that works when they're 5, but then they hit 17 and they're like, peace out. I'm not going to my room. Right? I'm going out the front door. So anyway, that's a side note, but that's one of the things I love about the tools that positive discipline gives us. So really using the tools available, this is before we even get into the big feelings, but just to create a general structure and space for regular, consistent, meaningful connection. Because we know that when our kids feel better, they do better. Now, these big feelings that you're experiencing with your daughter, or that this parent is experiencing with their daughter, that, we're going to sort of talk about that separately. But what we might want to do is first, by creating that loving, connected space, we might reduce some of the big feelings to begin with. However, we might also still be the safe place to fall for that kid, right? So if when they go to their other parent's home, the structures are removed, the things that are supporting them are removed, and those things are undermined, kids are really intuitive. They're really aware of what's going on. And they may like maybe that other parent is more permissive. They may think that's really fun and really great, and that the boundaries at, first parent's home aren't great. But kids actually like the safety and the stability and the sturdiness that are provided with structure, with boundaries. So you may be experiencing some fallout from when they're with the other parent because they've come home to the place that is their safe place to fall. And that means, if that's part of what's happening here, they are deeply connected. They do consider this a safe space. Our kids melt down where it is safe for them to melt down. I know I'm jumping around a little bit here, but what that means is that those boundaries that this parent has been setting, that the daughter seems to struggle with, they need to continue. Those boundaries need to continue to be set because they really are establishing a place and a space of safety. Now, in the moment when those big feelings are happening, there are tools that we can use, and it can be really exhausting. So I want to give this parent, if you're out there listening to this, I want to give you a little bit of grace. You are using some incredible things to support yourself: mindfulness, empathy, emotional regulation. And sometimes you're just freaking tired and you need a break. I get it. And so what you want to do in those moments is recognize, hey, you're going to make mistakes. And if you lash out at your kid in a way that you didn't intend to, make a repair. But you might also consider using all of those tools that you've been working with: mindfulness, empathy, emotional regulation, things that help us emotionally regulate, and teach them to your teen. Now, if you approach your teen when she's in the midst of a meltdown and you're like, hey, let's do this, she's probably not going to be very receptive. So I would look for ways to invite her into your practices, invite her into your mindfulness by teaching her tools and talking to her about it when she's not dysregulated. So maybe when you're feeling particularly connected with her, so that, if you get to a place of dysregulation, maybe because of something that's going on with her, you can both arrest that dysregulation sooner by helping one another calm down, by using the tools, right? And I'll mention that inside the Heartful Parent Academy, we have an entire module or section called Mindful Mondays, where I share all these types of emotional regulation tools for parents, for kids, things that we can teach them. So those might be really valuable. At the core, though, it sounds like you're doing exactly what I recommend, which is coupling two really critical things: empathy and validation, right? That's one thing. Validating her feelings, empathizing with her feelings, and then setting a boundary, right? So if she's saying something really mean to you, if your kid is like, you're the worst parent ever, when I'm at the other parent's home, they don't make me do X, Y, or Z. And you could say, wow, that must feel really hard. I know that you're navigating two different homes and that must feel confusing sometimes. And when you're here, this is the rule, right? We can say that with a lot of love, a lot of empathy, a lot of kindness. And then if they have emotional breakdown, then we help them work through it. Again, giving them tools. Boundaries are a critically important piece of all of this. So don't let those boundaries go. I feel like I jumped around a little bit, but here's the bottom line. Control what you can control. Remember that you are responsible for your relationship with your child. Your co-parent, your spouse, whoever else it is, they are responsible for their relationship with your child. You only need to worry about yours. Create structure, create connection rituals, have family meetings, have a way of connecting with this kid when she comes back into your home. Find activities that you can do together. I know that gets trickier when they're teens, but really helping her feel better so that she can do better. At the same time, setting really clear boundaries and recognizing that she may need some additional tools. Inviting her into your mindfulness, your emotional regulation tools, and teaching her how to use those. The final thing that I will say is making sure that you are bolstering your own self-care when she is with the other parent, so that you are coming into your parenting time with as full a bucket as you possibly can. All right, I want to just note that there are tons of tools inside the Heartful Parent Academy that would support a parent who's experiencing any of those. There's a module on emotion coaching. There's a module on sibling rivalry, which I didn't even really talk about here. There's the Mindful Mondays modules that are really helpful. There's modules and videos on how to set boundaries effectively. And then, of course, there's all the one-on-one support that members get from me. So if this wasn't in depth enough for you, or you feel like these questions are coming up again and again. We'd love to see you inside the Academy. And for anyone listening to this who resonates with any of this, which my guess is many of you, I'm here to support you in whatever way I can. All right. Have a great week, and I'll see you back next week for another episode of the Heartful Parent Podcast and another bonus question Friday. Cheers.
All right, listeners, thanks so much for coming along with me for this week's bonus episode. If you would like your question answered, drop me an email at Christy@theheartfulparent.com. I'd love to hear from you. You can also go to my website at theheartfulparent.com and sign up for my newsletter, where you receive the inside scoop on everything Heartful Parent, and it's delivered weekly to your inbox. Better yet, if you would like more answers to the parenting questions challenging you, and/or you would just like to support my work here at the Heartful Parent, there is no better way to do that than to join the Heartful Parent Academy. Inside the Academy, you get direct access to me, to get all your questions answered at least 3 times a month. And the more members, the more access I will offer. So use coupon code PODCAST to try out your first month for only $7. You can find the join link on my website. I feel so incredibly grateful that you let me into your lives every week and now twice a week. And I'm also so grateful to those who support the work that I'm doing. I truly cannot do this without you. Thanks so much. Cheers, everyone. I will see you next week.